And welcome back to Hoopsville, everybody, on this first Thursday of December 5th. Appreciate you all joining us. Of course, remember, we are pre-taped tonight due to a scheduling conflict. We promise when we get to January, we should be able to go live every single night, Sunday and Thursday nights throughout the season. But appreciate you enjoying at least this version of Hoopsville. We'll hopefully even be back on the air live next week, and we may even try and do a show during the Stag Bowl week. That is to be determined. I've always had high hopes, but had my attentions obviously drifting towards football quite a bit while down in Salem, Virginia, but we shall see. If you want to interact with us, don't forget you can always interact via email at Hoopsville at d3hoops.com. That's Hoopsville at d3hoops.com. You can also join us on Twitter at d3hoopsville or use the hashtag Hoopsville. Also, don't forget on Facebook, facebook.com/Hoopsville. A lot of milestones so far at the beginning of this season have been attained by a number of good coaches throughout the Division III landscape. And today we're going to talk to one of them up in New England. And joining us on the Hoopsville hotline is Coach Tim Gilbride from Bowdoin, whose team is 5-0, and he has now won his 400th victory thanks to a victory over Southern Maine just 2 days ago. Coach, thanks for joining us here on Hoopsville.
Pleasure to be on, Dave. Nice for having me.
Well, I appreciate you taking the time out of your busy day. First and foremost, 67-56 win over Southern Maine, of course, on the road for that one. You hit the 400 plateau. First and foremost, that's a great plateau to hit, and I assume you were thinking about it all summer long.
It's one of those things you actually try not to think about at all. And, as you get close to the season, then you are so focused on trying to prepare and get ready for games that you completely forget about it once the season starts until actually you get right next to it again. So I really didn't give it thought until, the day before the Southern Maine game.
And still the SID comes walking in and going, you're $3.99, right? John Swords led the way with 25 points and 16 rebounds. We'll talk about the team more in just a bit. But you're the 37th active Division III coach to hit this mark. You're now 402.90. It's always nice to have a winning percentage, as they say. Of course, you're in your 29th season with the team. It's been an up and down for Bowdoin, but because you're playing the NESCAC. But it's been a couple of solid years recently. Best of my memory, you haven't had a losing season in quite a while. What's the experience been like up there in Brunswick?
Yeah, I've loved my experience at Bowdoin. I appreciate how fortunate I am to work at a college that has such a strong academic reputation as well as a strong athletic reputation, and we work hard to try to get student athletes that like to excel in both. So I know how privileged I've been, and really winning 400 games is very, very nice. But really, the way I look at it, it's more a tribute to all the players and the coaches that I've had the privilege to work with over the years.
Certainly. I hear that a lot from a lot of coaches. No matter how many wins they have, you're in a NESCAC division that certainly got some good coaching. The Dave Hicksons of the world, the Jeff Browns of the world. You're right up there when people talk about the NESCAC in terms of coaching, but your coaching pedigree is a little bit deeper than men's basketball. You have 80-some-odd wins as a women's basketball coach. You've led the men's soccer program to 2 NCAA tournaments. You like to dabble in it all, as it were. You're probably a hot commodity on the Bowdoin campus.
I grew up loving sports like a lot of people did in my era, and playing a lot of sports. So when I went to Providence College, I was fortunate to be able to play soccer and basketball, which was fairly unusual at that time. So then when I left there, I taught math for 1 year, high school math, and was a JV basketball coach in Mansfield, Massachusetts, and realized right then that I loved the coaching aspect more than I loved the math teaching aspect. So kind of worked to try to have my career go in that direction as best I could.
Well, we should point out, by the way, you're the only coach in any division in the NCAA to lead a soccer team and a basketball team to the NCAA tournament. And I don't know if there's any other coaches who've even tried, for that matter. So pretty impressive there. Of course, we should also mention you guys got to the NESCAC championship game last year, and you won a record amount of games with 22-7 mark. This program has been on not on the outside, but just lurking in this NESCAC with the Amherst and the Williams and the Middleburys. and now it seems like you guys are poised to really kind of take things a little bit more in your control. How do you feel about this season, and how do you feel about NESCAC play?
It's obviously a great conference to play in, and every game is a battle. The fun thing about it is that really whoever the team in a given year that is not having as good a year is certainly capable of knocking off the top team. And then as you move up the ladder in the conference, the games get closer and closer and closer. So it's great. We have our rivalry games with Bates and Colby,
yep.
that are just fun and close games. It seems to be every year.
That's coming up this weekend.
The top teams, yeah. We actually play Bates tomorrow and then Colby on Saturday.
Yeah.
So we're starting right into that, and then the league is very, very strong. Obviously, I'm biased, but certainly if it's not the strongest, it's one of the stronger conferences in the country, and it's a fun one to be part of.
Absolutely. Of course, you guys technically on top of the conference, and since we haven't played a conference play at 5-0, Amherst at 4-0, Williams 6-1, Bates is 5-1, Colby's 4-1, Middlebury 5-2, Tufts 5-2, Wesleyan. I mean, you go down the litany of teams in this conference that have started off on a good note. You will play, as we noted, Bates and Colby this weekend in non-conference play, but in your little rivalry trio there. How important are these two games for you guys as you start looking at the Christmas break and getting going into the rest of the season?
They're very important. We try not to put them out too much importance on them, but they're such a big rivalry games that they always take on a bigger meaning than maybe they should. But they also give us a good indicator of where we're at and what we need to work on and what we need to improve on as we start to come into the second half of the season. So they're good gauge for us, and they're fun games to play because they're against such good rivals.
Looking at your roster, if I'm not mistaken, you've got 3 seniors on this squad. You got 4 or 5 juniors, and then everybody else out there. So you've got quite a bit of experience at the top, which is certainly helping you. They've all went to that NESCAC championship game last year.
Yeah.
Of course,
it wasn't last year that we made the
did I misread that?
Game.
I apologize.
Yeah, that was a few years ago, but
I guess, there it is. Yeah, it's details. I'm just reading the wrong bio information.
That's all right.
14-10 last season. It said 22-7. Those are just your career marks. So I apologize.
We were fifth in the conference last year, just behind Tufts.
I'm just completely misreading your bio. Is all it is. It's minor details for me. I just need new glasses. Is clearly the case here. But you're led by John Swartz, as we mentioned, the junior center at 16.2 points a game, hauling in 10.6 rebounds. Averaging a double-double is always a pretty good one for you. The other junior, Keegan Pereri, 12.8 points a game. You got 2 other guys, seniors, who are averaging 10 points a game. One sophomore, just a smidge under 10 points a game. When you look at the stat line and you just look at it on paper, that looks like you guys are really spreading the ball out, finding different options, and that makes it hard for a defense to key on anybody.
Yeah, we've been doing a very, very nice job of sharing the basketball and have a real group of unselfish guys that do not really care who does the scoring as long as we get good shots and do the things we're supposed to do as a team. So that's made us, I think, fairly effective on the offensive end. And the fact that John Swords has been doing well at the center, so people have to key on him a little bit or work hard to keep him from getting the ball. And that frees up other people. And John's very unselfish as well.
Yeah, it's certainly fun to watch. You come off, again, you haven't had a losing season in a long time, so you're always in play in the NESCAC, but you've been at that 5-5 mark for a couple of years. What does this team need to do to kind of take that next step to get to the championship game? I assumed you were in last year. To compete with the Williams, the Middleburys, and the Amherst, and even the others like the Wesleyans, who are certainly in play these days.
Right. It's a little bit of I think having confidence against those teams in the big games and realizing that your team is capable of doing that. I think last year being in 5th and Tufts was in 4th and those other 3 teams, Amherst, Williams, and Middlebury, making it to the Elite 8, gave our team a sense of confidence, even though we were 5th, that hey, we can play with the top teams in the country, and let's just work hard from day one and see what if we can maybe make inroads into cracking into that group ourselves.
Looking at the schedule, you guys have played Western Connecticut, Regis, St. Joseph's of Maine, Babson, and Southern Maine so far. You look at the rest of the schedule, it's a who's who of New England schools. The furthest outside of New England is Hamilton in upstate New York. Obviously, the travel coming out of Maine is grueling to begin with. Of course, you have Presque Isle there. I see you notedly, smartly decided to have them come to you. I know that trip. You don't necessarily want to go to Presque Isle on January 21st in the middle of the season.
We have made that trip and had some difficulty weather-wise, but
just don't go to Fort Kent.
Coming to us.
Just don't go to Fort Kent. It's a little further away. But how much? I mean, you're very New England-centric, obviously, because the travel is a concern. But have you guys thought about what you can do outside of the region? And I ask this because of the change in what games count now. The fact that if you play 70% in your region, you can play anybody and have it count. Have you thought then to, hey, let's broaden our horizons a little bit? Or do you want to stay New England-centric, or does the travel just basically have to keep you New England-centric?
I think probably a little bit of all those things, Dave. I think we're fortunate that we have, even within Maine, a lot of good quality Division III schools. So when we play out-of-conference games, we don't have to travel as far.
Yeah.
I think that the importance of that is for academic reasons, if we, not missing class time. And really that's probably the most important thing, not missing class time and playing games. So we try to limit that as much as we possibly can for that reason. And then the fact that we are able to play such good schedules without traveling is so it doesn't hurt us in terms of strength of schedule by playing those kinds of teams. So that's to our benefit as well. And with the new rule, I have started to think about it, so it'd probably be something I think about down the road a little bit more. We usually have our schedules fairly intact a couple of years ahead, so it's something that we'll be thinking about.
Well, in New England, it's hard to miss a Division III school up there. They're almost every other exit off the interstate. You're going to find another Division III school. So it's not like you have to leave New England to find some good competition. Of course, the NESCAC right in there along the way. When you look at this team and you look at this conference, is this the Amherst Conference to lose? Is Williams a sleeper? Are you guys a sleeper? Wesleyan, how do you see this conference shaping up this year?
I think just with what they did last year and with the players that they have returning, that you have to look at Amherst as in my mind, anyhow, as the preseason favorite.
Yeah.
After that, I think that the teams that have been there and done it before are certainly going to be favored and are very good and will make good runs at it. But I think there's lots of teams this year that are capable of making runs. It just depends maybe how it falls together for teams. I'm hoping that we're in that grouping.
Talking to Coach Tim Gilbride of Bowdoin, who apparently won 22 games last season and made it to the NESCAC championship. I apologize again. Obviously not reading very well. But talking to him about the conference and, of course, his team, and, of course, winning 400 games, which is certainly impressive along the way. You mentioned, you have a lot of quality schools in Maine, and Maine certainly, having grown up there, I almost considered it a little bit of an Indiana in the sense of basketball. The state championships, the Eastern and Western Maine championships draw huge crowds. They practically take school off for those weeks, for those tournaments. We've always known that the Bates and the Colbys and yourselves and the Southern Maines, obviously, especially in women's basketball, have always been good. But it does seem like that the competition's getting a little bit better. It's not Bates, Colby, or Bowdoin. It's now Bates, Colby, and Bowdoin. Even the Babsons are starting to improve, and et cetera. So, from your vantage point, what's been the biggest change in Maine basketball in the last few years or throughout your coaching?
I think that there's just a little bit more depth of quality players throughout the state. I think, different reasons for that. Kids playing more during the summers, getting a chance to maybe play with some AAU teams and getting a little bit more exposure outside of the state. And then just the passion within the state. So that those guys that are at schools that have had great histories and traditions, they just play basketball year round and love it to death. So you get a lot of good in-state kids that just are unbelievably skilled because they put so much time and energy and effort in, and are smart basketball players. And now they're adding that to the exposure of getting outside the state and seeing different styles and different things. So I think it just makes the whole group on average a little bit better.
And of course, per that point, I find it funny that you only have one Maine guy on your roster. Vermont, Massachusetts, Maryland, Baltimore to be specific, where we're located, Florida, then Vermont again, New Jersey, Connecticut, New York, Camden, Maine, Keegan, Peary, congratulations, New York, Georgia, Massachusetts, it rounds out the list. So while there's a lot of Maine talent there, you're also able to grab nationally on some really good talent too. And does that mean is that the school's name that's helping you there?
Yeah, without a question, it's the reputation of the school academically. Yeah. So it is very it's very well known throughout the country. So if there are students that are looking to get a quality education at a good basketball school, we come up on the list.
Yeah, and of course you've got some good schools to recruit out of there as well.
Right.
Well, congratulations! Terrific season to start so far, 5-0. Obviously, the big trio games here against Bates and Colby for the weekend. Looking forward to that trio of basketball action. And of course, we're looking forward to seeing how you do in the NESCAC. As always, I give the guest the final word here on Hoopsville. Any final thoughts you want to share with those who may be tuning in?
No, I really appreciate you having me on, and looking forward to the games this weekend and to the season, and obviously appreciate all you do for Division III basketball. So thank you, Tim.
Well, thank you very much. Congratulations again on 400, and I'm sure we'll be talking about the Polar Bears throughout the rest of the season.
Thanks.
All right, Tim Gilbride joining us here from Bowdoin men's basketball. Again, team off to a 5-0 start, and he has won his 400th victory. It's now the rest of the season from here. Again, Bates and Colby this weekend, and then Maine Maritime and Maine Farmington before the Christmas break to finish out the 13 part of the season. We're going to be back with more Hoopsville after this. Reminder to join us on Twitter at D3Hoopsville or hashtag Hoopsville, Facebook.com/Hoopsville, or email us at Hoopsville@D3Hoops.com. We'll be back with more Hoopsville presented by D3Hoops.com and the National Association of Basketball Coaches right after this.